Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Kyushu 2024 is over, and what an absolute banger to finish the year. Grandson and nephew both decided that this was the tournament where they'd live up to expectations, which went well for the grandson and slightly less well for the nephew. But the breakdown of how everyone did is for another day. Right now, we gotta talk Banzuke. As usual, up on the screen, we've got Chio Tasuke's Banzuke helper, so let's pop on our math hats and sort these guys out. Alright, that is the math done for this Banzuke. Now, for those of you who are new here or new to this idea of doing the math, this is how it works real quick. Let's zoom in here. So if we look at the middle section here, basically, when we do the math, it means we subtract the losses a guy has from their wins, and then we move them up or down that amount. So Chiyoshima here was 11 and 4, 11 minus 4 is 7, so you can see he went up 7 ranks. Ura, 5 and 10, 5 minus 10 is negative 5, so he went down 5 ranks. If a guy moves between sections of the Banzuke, so for example, Shodai was a Komusubi, so he was in the Sanyaku, and now he's moving down to Maegashira, the helper only puts an arrow because of the way guys move between the Sanyaku and Maegashira, or between Makuuchi and Juryo, that can make things a little bit different, so the simple number isn't put here, but the same idea is in play. Komusubi 1 West was the bottom of the Sanyaku, 4 and 11, he's down 7 ranks, so he's at Maegashira 7. Alright, let's start at the top. First, we're going to point out right here that we've got 41 out of 42 slots filled in Makuuchi right now. That means that the math has 41 guys in this division, so they should all stay here. But we're going to have to pull up one guy who mathematically is in Juryo. We'll deal with that when we get to the bottom. Here at the top, Terunofuji, he's the Yokozuna. He stays the Yokozuna. Nothing changes here. Ozeki, anyone who is an Ozeki gets placed in order of wins from the previous tournament. Now in this case, Kotozakura, Hoshoryu, and Onosato finished in terms of wins in the same order they already are, so they're not going to change spots. It's going to be Koto, then Hoshoryu, and then Onosato. Daisho, as the one Sekiwake who remains at the rank, should move over to Sekiwake 1 East, and then Wakamoto Haru, being promoted from Komusubi, will go to Sekiwake 1 West. Could they move Wakamoto Haru ahead of Daisho to 1 East? Yes, they could. It would go against the grain big time. It's very unlikely to happen. This is almost certainly what they're gonna do. Now, Abi and Wakataka Kage are shoo-ins for Komusubi since Kirishima lost, so he's gonna drop out of the Sanyaku completely. I put Takano Sho here at Komusubi 2, not because I think he's gonna end up there, but just to show that this is how the math works. So he was Maegashira 6, he was 11 and 4, so he goes up 7 ranks by the math, which actually puts him here where Abi is, but Abi would be way higher. This is for simplicity's sake. He's below Abi and Wakataka Kage, that's the important thing. They only have to have 2 Komusubi, so unless there's a really good reason to open up a 3rd Komusubi slot, which in this case there really isn't, there's nothing, like Takano Sho going to Maegashira 1 East is still a pretty good promotion, so they're just gonna do that most likely. Now we work on the top of Maegashira, and the question here really is, what do they do with Kirishima? Kirishima was a Sekiwake. They have been definitely showing some favoritism for guys who are coming out of the Sanyaku. So are they going to put him at Maegashira 1 East? They could. Are they going to put him ahead of just Gonoyama at Maegashira 1 West? They could. Are they going to leave him here at 2 East? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. What we can say for sure is that Atami Fuji should get bumped back to 3 East here and Tobizaru to 2 West. So those two guys should go in those 2 slots. There really shouldn't be too much question about that. The main reason why Oho should not get bumped ahead of either of these guys is that even though Oho was Maegashira 1 East, so he had one of the most difficult schedules in Sumo, Atami Fuji was also in the Joi, he had to fight the whole Sanyaku, and Tobizaru was a little bit outside. So when I made my predictions for this tournament, I actually wasn't sure how Tobi was going to do because 5 East usually doesn't get a whole lot of Sanyaku matchups, but it looked like he would this time. And in fact, he had to fight 5 members of the Sanyaku, and he didn't do that great. He went 1-4 against them, but he still managed to beat basically everyone else and go 9-6. So there's no reason why Oho would be favored over these guys. He should end up at Maegashira 3 West. Now the question really becomes, what do we do with Takanosho, Gonoyama, and Kirishima? So Takanosho fought 4 guys in the Sanyaku because he was doing really well. After 10 days, he was 9-1, and then he beat Onosato. So then he had to fight Kiri, he had to fight Kontazakura, he had to fight Daisho. They could take that into account and say, well, you know what, he actually had a fairly difficult schedule, so we're going to put him ahead of Kirishima. Gonoyama only ended up fighting 2 Sanyaku because he struggled a little bit more early. He was 7-3, which is not really struggling, but it's not in contention. So he got Kiri on day 13 and he got Wakamoto Haru on day 14. Now, to what extent they tend to take this into account is sometimes hard to tell. What seems the least likely, given recent history, and I mean just the last couple tournaments, and sometimes they change significantly what they do from tournament to tournament, it's kind of maddening, is Kirishima at 2 East behind both of these guys actually doesn't seem that likely. Kiri should probably end up at Maegashira 1, either East or West. So I'm guessing Gonoyama at 2 East and then Kiri and Takanosho at Maegashira 1, but flip-flop them however you see fit. And now this gets really interesting because there are 3 full empty ranks that we have to fill. Chiyoshoma is technically the next one in line. He was 11-4, but he was at Maegashira 14. Meanwhile, we've got Shodai, Ura, and Hiraumi all sitting nearby who had much more difficult schedules, but also did really badly. Because Chiyoshoma is going to get over promoted pretty much regardless of what happens, I am guessing they're going to put Shodai and Ura at the very least ahead of him. So if Shodai was in the Sanyaku, he should end up ahead of Ura if they're both tied, which they are. I don't know why I said it that way. So Shodai goes down 3.5 ranks on 4 and 11, Ura only goes down 2 on 5 and 10, but under the circumstances, that is actually pretty reasonable. Do they pull up Hiraumi from a 1.5 ranks behind Chiyoshoma? A few months ago, I would have said no, probably not, but at the moment, I think that's actually quite plausible. So Hiraumi goes down 3.5 ranks on 4 and 11, and then Chiyoshoma still goes up 8.5 ranks on 11 and 4. And frankly, this is probably good for Chiyo, because the Sanyaku, if we move up, the Sanyaku might have 8 active guys, because Terano Fuji has seemed to have like a 1 tournament on, 2 tournament off kind of flow. So if he's working towards getting healthy for January, that means that Maegashira 5 West, Chiyoshoma should, for the most part, avoid the Sanyaku. Now, the guys around him are already going to be pretty tough, and I still don't think he'll do that well at this rank anyway, but it could be a lot worse. Endo and Mitakeyumi. So Endo and Mitakeyumi were 7 and 8, which again, if you're new to this stuff, they do not give you promotions with a losing record. It doesn't happen. They don't do it. They can only go up to the ranks that they were in before, Maegashira 7 East and West. Takayasu, therefore, becomes the main guy, even with his simple 8 and 7 record, to go up to 6 East. Roga, again, 7 and 8 at 8 East, he can't go higher than that, so someone else has to fill 6 West. That should end up being Ichi Yamamoto. After all, we've got 8 and 7, 8 and 7, 8 and 7, 8 and 7, 8. There's really nothing to separate these guys other than the rank they started at. So Ichi Yamamoto should get bumped up where he will probably get destroyed in January. Kinbozan's not going to end up here because he's coming up from Juryo. He'll get pushed further down, so we're going to ignore him for a moment. That means Takara Fuji should go up to 8 West, and Midori Fuji, again, 7 and 8. 9 East is the best he can do, so he should end up there. Tamawashi, he'll get bumped over to 9 West, since again, Kinbozan's going to get sent back. But what do we do with Meisei and Churanoumi? So, by the math, this is what we should have. We should have Churanoumi going over to 10 West behind Tamawashi and Meisei. However, there is another possibility. Chura no Umi was Maegashira 4 East. He ended up fighting, did he fight the entire Sanyaku? He fought 6 of them. He didn't fight Onosato because he was doing so badly. So what they could do is move him to 9 West, and that way Tamawashi and Meisei just get the +1 promotion that they're supposed to get on 8 and 7. This is absolutely plausible. It's kind of an open question each Banzuke now, whether they're going to give guys who had to fight the Sanyaku, who were in the Joi, if they're going to favor them against guys who are lower down. If we go by what they did last time, this seems pretty likely. If we go by what they did a few Banzukes ago, this becomes a lot less likely. I got to give this one some thought, but what seems more likely at the moment, and this is probably not the right way to look at it, but again, that's why I have to think about it, is that Chura no Umi and Oshoma had very, very similar schedules. They were both Maegashira 4, and they both ended up with 4 and 11 records. They can't both go ahead of Tamawashi and Meisei without Tamawashi and Meisei getting under-promoted, and I don't think they're going to do that. So rather than split up Chura and Oshoma, I'm going to keep them together now, but there's nothing that says they have to be kept together, so Chura could end up at 9 West. This is the one thing I don't think is going to happen. That would make no sense. Splitting Chura between Tamawashi and Meisei would be way too goofy. So we're going to do that, but Chura might move up to 9 West. I'm not sure yet. Now things are starting to get a little packed in. We've got Nishikigi and Takerufuji who are tied, and in general, if a guy is not fighting against the Sanyaku, if he's not in the Joi, they've been giving that priority to the guy with the winning record. So that would put Nishikigi behind Takerufuji. Yes, that's going to over-demote him, but they have been perfectly happy to do that recently. I see no reason why that would change now. That would move Nishikigi back, that would then move Onokatsu back, which would also move Shonen Umi back, and then Hokuto Fuji also gets over-demoted. It's unfortunate, but that's how it lines up, and there's really no reason to think that they're gonna do things any other way. None of these guys have any reason to be pushed ahead of the other despite being mathematically behind, which means they're just probably gonna stay in this line. Well, so be it. Now, for that reason, even though Kinbozan finished way ahead of everyone else coming up from Juryo mathematically, I don't think he gets placed at this point because they're not going to push down guys even further when they're already getting over-demoted in order to make room for a Juryo guy. What could happen, because Kota Shoho, in this case, is getting a correct demotion of 9 ranks on his 3 and 12 record, remember Kyujo losses count as regular losses, that Kinbozan could slip in here at Maegashira 14 East. Kota Shoho did have to fight Hoshoryu, but that probably doesn't mean that much. So I'm gonna guess that Kinbozan and Kota Shoho are going to be Maegashira 14, but they could go in either order here. I'm gonna leave Kinbozan ahead for a moment, but I'm pretty sure they're 14. You can flip them however you want. From there, we have a lot of Juryo guys. Hakuoho, hey, welcome back, kid. Hopefully you're healthy enough to do something. He's gonna go to 15 East, Katanawaka bumps over to 15 West. Tamashoho probably gets placed ahead of Kageyaki, although this again could be flip-flopped pretty easily. Now, will they put Nishiki Fuji ahead of any of these guys? According to recent history, probably not. What they've tended to do is bump down guys who had losing records in Makuuchi, but are gonna stay in Makuuchi. As long as you're not getting over-demoted, then they'll put the Juryo guys ahead of them. So Nishiki Fuji would actually be slightly under-demoted, going to 17 East on 6 and 9. And then it's really between Toki Hayate and Shiden. Well, Toki Hayate was in Makuuchi, Shiden was not. They are mathematically tied. Toki Hayate certainly going to get that spot. So that's what we've got at the bottom of Makuuchi. We've got Kinbozan, Kota Shoho, flip-flopping however you want. Hakuoho, then Katanawaka should be 15. Tamashoho, Kageyaki should be at 16, but you might flip them either way. And Nishiki Fuji and Toki Hayate, if they put those guys ahead of any of the Juryo guys, that would break recent precedent pretty substantially, so I don't expect that to happen, but they could always do it. Now let's play around with Juryo. Shiden is ahead of everyone else. He should go to Juryo 1 East. This is not only a career high rank for him, it's a career high rank after last tournament, which was also a career high rank. So this is unknown territory for him. He's probably going to get thumped if there's an odd number of guys in Makuuchi and he gets dragged up to a couple of fights in that division. But hey, if he can pull 8 and 7, he might get the real salary for a tournament before he gets kicked back down here. Sada no Umi probably goes to Juryo 1 West. Now, Sada no Umi and Shiden could absolutely switch spots here. I guess I'm sort of hoping that Shiden goes to 1 East because then 8 and 7 guarantees him a promotion, and that would be kind of cool. It'd be like a Chura no Umi story. Dude in his 30s, he's been kind of just grinding and spinning his wheels for a long time, and now suddenly he gets a little bit of a pop-off, and now he's going to make it to the top division. That would be really cool. But Sada no Umi and Shiden are going to be at Juryo 1. In what order, I'm not sure. Kaio and Tsurugisho are next, but Ryuden and Asakoryu are right behind them, and again, they were in Makuuchi. So I am inclined to think that we're gonna see probably, who do we think is gonna be here? Ryuden, are they gonna put Ryuden ahead of Asakoryu? I don't know. Asakoryu had the better record, so let's put him ahead, and then Ryuden to 2 West. We'll move Kaio to 3 East and Tsurugisho to 3 West. Could they move Shishi ahead of these guys as well? Well, no, because if they did that, Shishi would be ahead of Kaio, and Kaio would not get any promotion on 8 and 7, which isn't going to happen. Tsurugisho could get bumped back, but because he was tied with Kaio, I don't think they're going to do that. Shishi didn't do that well. There's really no reason for them to be kind to him in that way. He's probably just going to go to 4 East. Shirokuma, unfortunately, going to get over-demoted a little bit to 4 West. If they really want to make sure that Shimanumi gets his full rank demotion, they could leave him at 5 West and like move Aonishiki or Hidenoumi up. There's no reason for them to do that though. So we'll move Shimanumi up, we'll move Aonishiki to 5 West. Tomokaze sits in the correct spot at 6 West. Tochi Taikai and Fuji Seiyun are tied. Tochi Taikai and Fuji Seiyun tied. Tochi Taikai and Fuji Seiyun tied. Tochi Taikai had the better record. We'll move him to 7 East. Now we have a little bit of a gap. What do we do with it? Probably Mitoryu is going to get no demotion on... You know what? Why do I assume that's going to happen? Do I actually think that's going to happen? They have been trying to get guys demoted if they can be demoted. I'm actually going to push Mitoryu to 8 West. Daiseisan is going to end up... Oh, you know what's going to happen? I'm sorry. Mitoryu, Daiseisan, and Bushozan should slide in there. He was out with like foot and mouth disease or hand and mouth disease. I don't know, whichever one doesn't happen to cows. So he was doing badly and then couldn't fight for a third of the tournament. So he's going to end up pretty far down, but he should end up ahead of these guys at the very least. Shimizu Umi was clearly struggling with his leg, so he only went 5 and 10. He's going to drop to 10 East. Hakuyozan gets a little bit of a save. Daiamami, a little bit of a save. Tohakuryu, a little bit bigger of a save. Now, the Makushita guys here are going to be treated a little bit like the Juryo guys further up. They're not going to be pushed any higher than they need to be. So the question becomes, where exactly do they end up? There's actually a couple of possibilities here. The 7 and 8 guys could all get bumped back only a half rank. The Makushita guys end up at Juryo 12, and then Daishoho with his 4 and 11 ends up behind all of them. Then he's only going down 3.5 ranks on 4 and 11, which is pretty good. They could put Daishoho ahead of Hatsuyama and Kiryuko because he was a little further up in the division. Then he's only going down 2.5 ranks on 4 and 11, which you only do that if you really want to make sure the Makushita guys get pushed down as far as they can go. The main rationale for this is that if you consider 5 and 2 to be +3, doing the math normally, then Hatsuyama is exactly where he should go and Kiryuko is exactly where he should go. To go up higher would be an overpromotion, but they tend not to think of things exactly that way when they're doing these kinds of moves, so I don't know how relevant that is. And then there's a third option, which is Hatsuyama and Kiryuko are here, but then Wakaikari, Kotoeho, and Nabatame don't get demoted, and Aishoho ends up at the bottom of the division. Now, someone who knows how the Juryo division tends to play out better than I do thinks this is what's going to happen. And he's probably right, or more likely to be right than I am. But something about this feels really weird. I think it's going to be Daishoho at 13 East, and then the 7 and 8 guys get bumped back half rank, just because they've really made a point of pushing demotions where demotions can happen, rather than letting guys who are 7 and 8 stay in the same spot when there's an option to move them back that's pretty reasonable. And this is a reasonable option for bumping them back. I wouldn't be surprised if Daishoho ends up at 12 East ahead of the Makushita guys coming up, but I don't think it's as likely as this. As for the other guys in Makushita, if you're not familiar with how this works, really what you need to know is that if you are in the top 5 ranks, that's considered the promotion zone. If you do well enough, you might be able to get bumped up. But Kotokuzan and Aqua were at the bottom of the promotion zone and only went 4 and 3, so that's not good enough. And Wakanosho and Kazakeno, 6 and 1 and 5 and 2 respectively, those records might be good enough, but they weren't in the promotion zone. Kazakeno was at Makushita 6 and Wakanosho at Makushita 7. So they're going to have to wait at least one more tournament to get up there. And that is our instant Banzuke for Kyushu 2024 heading into Hatsu January 2025. What do you think of our lineup? Let us know in the comments. As always, the link to Chiyotasuke's helper here and to the Guess the Banzuke entry page will be in the description. Also, if you haven't done it, check out our community page. We've got a poll up for after day 15 of the basho. It's fun. Give us a vote. It'll be worth your time. Other than that, once this goes up, we'll be working on the tier list recap, so look for that in the next day or two. And as for now, have a great day, and I will see you soon.